That was a look at a radar on chip. Today, India is going through a communications revolution. There are more than 1 billion mobile phones, lot of them smartphones. Internet is now almost omnipresent, and the revolution of Internet of Things is unfolding. I am inside what is called a Faraday's cage, and what you saw, radar on chip seen through a microscope. A lot of the research and development in India on electrical communications engineering has happened at the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. On this episode of Life in Science with Pallav Bagla, a close look at some of the facilities where this revolution is unfolding for the 21st century. Truly, the making of a connected and a Atmanirbhar Bharat. The smartphone I hold in my hand is a marvel of hardware and software. I am at one of India's most illustrious institutions, the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, and behind me is the Electrical Communications Engineering Department. What is happening in the connected world? A lot of the research happens in departments like this. I have with me Professor K.J. Vinoy. Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar.
Professor Vinoy is a specialist in this area, and he will take us through the revolution that is unfolding. For a layperson, Professor Vinoy, what is electrical communication engineering?
The electrical communication engineering is almost everything that you hold these days today, with your smartphones, to your microwaves, to many of the smart instruments that you have in your homes these days.
And the cameras.
Of course, definitely. And in the department, we conduct research in many areas that will, help us through the next decades at this stage of time. And you have machine learning, you have IoT devices,
all these Internet of Things,
and all these things that is now helping us connect with everyone across the world. And even in these times of pandemic, all of us are keeping happy by interacting with our peers all over the world. So ECE is playing a key role in helping the world together, I would say.
Now, what has been the journey so far? You are celebrating 75 years of the Electrical Communications Engineering Department of the Indian Institute of Science. Amrit Mahotsav for you. How has been the journey so far?
It has indeed been a great journey for the department. We started out as a small communications laboratory almost 100 years back in 1923 in the electrical technology department of this 100-year-old institute, 100-plus-year-old institute. And in around 1947, they moved to this location here, which is as far away from the conventional high power, high voltage signals that are there, so that you get a peaceful place to work with your electronics. And since then, they have moved over different transformations in the department to cover various evolving topics that are key to get us all connected, as you rightly began with.
The phone I hold in my hand is 5G compatible. Let's now go and see some of the sophisticated antenna work which happens in this illustrious department. We are in a very special facility. Professor Binoy, what is this and why is this foam so funny shaped?
Yeah, as I said before, we are in a connected world, and to connect each devices you need antennas. And this is a facility specially made to test antennas. And as you could see here, we have this absorbing material lining all the walls of the room. And we bring in antennas here and then test them.
Do you do any 5G work here?
Oh, definitely. So what you see here is an antenna array, phased array that we have developed for 5G applications. And you can see there are 64 antennas here, and we mount it in this stage here and take its characteristics as if it is in a standard environment for evaluation purposes.
So this is essentially to make sure that we get good quality 5G services when we roll out, correct?
Yes, all the antennas will get tested before they are used in devices that you will hold in your hand some years from now.
Thanks a lot for speaking to us and showing this unique facility.
Thank you.
Let's now go and take a look at other facilities and meet other specialists who work in this revolutionary area. We are inside a Faraday cage, and I have with me Professor Gaurav Banerjee, a person who looks at very special things in electrical engineering, in communication, and in future work. Professor Gaurav, what is special about this place?
Well, this is a Faraday cage, which means that it's completely isolated from electromagnetic or radio waves. And so if you shut the door in this cage, you can do experiments without violating any of the government rules on spectrum usage. And this is what we typically do with our circuits.
And what is your work on? What is this radar on chip?
So radars, as you know, have been around for a long time. They were used in the Second World War to win the Second World War. In the last 10 or 15 years, I'd say they've become very popular because they're used in automotive safety devices, right? So to prevent collisions and so on. We have in the last 5 years or so in our group, we've built a capability, probably the first time in academia in India, to do end-to-end design of radars on chip. So we've put the entire electronics on a radar on a single integrated circuit that's very tiny, a few millimeters across, smaller than a grain of rice.
Professor Gaurav, can you show us on the microscope and what is there on the screen?
Sure. So right here in this microscope, we have a small semiconductor chip, which is under the microscope on a probe station. And generally, we look at the chip through the microscope, and then we move it left and right. And then we bring probes down, which can be individual probes, or it could be through a probe card. And this allows us to, and for convenience, what we do is from the microscope, we split the feed, and then it goes to a camera, and we can show it in here. So this is essentially our radar on chip. And, as you can see, it has got 3 receivers and 1 transmitter. And this entire thing is smaller than a grain of rice, but because it's under a microscope, you're able to see it in a much more magnified version. These tiny things here, they're called inductors, and they form a very important part of an electronic circuit, especially at the types of frequencies that we're talking about. There's a whole bunch of other electronics in here, and the electronics is very similar to that of a cell phone. So if you open your 2G or 3G or 4G cell phone, you will find that inside that there are very similar circuits. There are receivers, there are transmitters, and so on.
Having seen the radar on chip, let us go and figure out what are the other applications of this radar on chip. Let's go, sir.
Thanks.
We saw the radar on chip. We are in a facility where testing is happening for some of that. Professor Gaurav, what are the applications of a radar on chip?
So the primary application of a radar on chip in a modern context is in many strategic type setups. So for example, airport security, for example, you want to look through a wall and, in a strategic kind of application, find out what sort of targets do you have behind them. We also have many biomedical applications. We are also in a pandemic situation, looking at measuring the heart rate and the respiration rate of people who are standing in a crowd and separating them with perhaps some machine intelligence and finding out if they are infected by a disease or not, which is very, very important in a pandemic situation.
Professor Gaurav, do you also have applications for biomedical in senior citizens?
Absolutely. So one of the applications would be that, we have a large elderly population and people fall, unfortunately, in the bathrooms, and they don't put cameras because of privacy, right? So a radar is able to create an image of that person without actually creating a physical image, which means an artificial intelligence can be used to train the system to recognize an elderly fall. And if you detect a fall, you can take the senior citizen very quickly to a hospital and save valuable lives and also save a lot in care expenses, right, which are a huge burden on the insurance sector. So this is a huge commercial application of this technology.
Thanks a lot for speaking to us, Professor Gaurav.
Thank you.
Let's go and take a look at other applications of electrical communication engineering. Let's go. As you can make out, there is lots of semiconductors, there is lots of electrical and communications engineering around me. There are computers, there are antennas, there is all kinds of connectivity, and what would be the future of India is all here. And I have with me Professor Rajesh Sundaresan. Professor Sundaresan works at the Electrical Communications Engineering Department of the Indian Institute of Science. This is also the place where early internet came into India. Professor Sundaresan, tell me a little bit about the early internet here.
ERNet, the Educational Research Network, was practically the one that brought internet to India. And I think the National Center for Software Technology and the IITs and IISc were instrumental in bringing it here and making it available for people. Many might have gotten their first email IDs, which would be an ERNet ID.
You're correct. My first email ID was an ERNet ID long ago.
There is a service aspect to the ERNet to make connectivity available, but there is also the aspect of trying to make it work in an efficient way. I think the institutes here and IISc, along with the other IITs, were key players in trying to see how it ought to be implemented here. I think we have seen the revolution subsequently.
So the digital revolution we are seeing in India, the digital India, in a way, early steps right here?
I would say that that is an appropriate way to put it. I think IISc played an important role in ensuring that this spread to far and wide across India.
One big initiative of the government is the cyber physical systems. Tell me a little bit about that and how are you applying?
So I'm actually happy to say that the cyber physical systems domain itself is something that IISc played a very crucial role in shaping. So this started sometime around 2011, where at IISc, as a consequence of the experience that we had had in wireless sensor networking and other such things, where we were building prototypes. There was a need, or we recognized that there is a potential to take it to maybe a lot more applications, city scale applications. So the Center for Cyber Physical Systems in IISc, with funding support from the Robert Bosch Foundation, was started in 2011. I think we have been working on many interesting projects. It might be fair to say that there was a significant amount of contribution that the center made to shaping the policy of the National Mission for Cyber Physical Systems as well. But in terms of the applications, I want to highlight possibly one application that many in our department have been working on, and that is smart water distribution in a city. So imagine Bangalore. Bangalore has about 12.4 million people, 1.24 crore people. If we can get data from various sensors that are placed about the pressure that is there, and then about the quality of water, about the amount of water that is flowing from the flow meters, all accumulated to one particular place, or maybe it could be distributed algorithms as well. Then imagine the kind of things that we can do to control each of these to ensure water supply as efficiently as possible. So IISc is involved in this kind of a project, in fact with the Bangalore Water Supply and Sewerage Board, where we are trying to build such a network and prototype some of the algorithms. Algorithms could, for example, be how do we maybe we don't get 24/7 water supply in this area. Is it a network limitation? Can we understand whether with the existing network and with the amount of water that's available, let's say that there is sufficient water, what kind of controls can we do to ensure that we can redirect flow here, redirect flow there, to ensure 24/7 water supply when after all we are filling up these tanks? Can we do it a little more intelligently? So this is enabled through this data gathering, through this intelligence at the back end, and then through the controls that one could do. We are working on such a prototype, and it's almost in the final stages where we will actually demonstrate it in one part of Bangalore.
Thanks a lot for speaking to us, Professor Sundaresan. May the smart work you do here help India get smart cities. The future is unfolding with the Internet of Things. And all around me is the work being done to make sure India is not left out. Let's go and see other things. Let's go outside. I'm at the illustrious Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, the main building of IISc, the imposing building right behind me. And I have with me an equally illustrious alumnus of this institute, Dr. Alok Nath Dey. Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar ji.
Dr. Alok Nath Dey is the Chief Technology Officer for Samsung India. The connected world is happening a lot thanks to him. Dr. Dey, you studied here in the Electrical Communication Engineering Department. How was it like then, and has that training come through to you when you are CTO of Samsung India?
Definitely. You know, if you look into my previous background, I graduated from IIT Kharagpur, and there we studied in communication department. And that time it was about communications and control. But when I came here, one reason is how to combine the communications with computing. I understood, this was in 87, that the power of computing have to be combined with communication. So that was the first step. And also this is a great institute for research. Only postgraduate students used to come there. So I wanted to have a research career, and my PhD, I did it in McGill after the IISc. So we went and lived there in Canada for 10 years, worked in Nortels. So obviously, you know, if you look into communications, I see three streams. And you talked about connected devices. So one is the 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G, this journey from my Canada in Nortel, and then in Hughes Satellite Communications, in ST Ericsson in 4G, and Samsung. The first assignment was how to do research in 5G communications.
Oh, lovely.
And from there to standards, to trials, to building solutions, you know, it has been a fascinating journey so far on this whole 5G. And now, from 2011 to 21, it takes a decade to build this. And recently we started working, obviously a lot of deep research, but we thought, what are the requirements of 6G system that may be coming in 2030? And this is a book that we kind of edited.
6G mobile, you already have a book on that.
Yeah, this is from Springer. They say it's world's first 6G book, and we are happy to do that, and things have changed. So this is one dimension, and we can talk more about that. But the other dimensions is, even in EC, you asked the question, the signal processing department, the stochastic process, the signal processing have been fascinating. And we started with simple audio processing. That was my PhD thesis in McGill. But from there, we took it to how to take it to multimedia, your vision. And today, people are not talking 2D images. They're talking 3D.
Correct.
3D videos are there, but people are talking about holographic processing. And that's one topic in 6G. How do you bring holographic applications that cannot be done by 5G?
Now, you are the chief technology officer of Samsung, and Samsung makes some of the finest smartphones. And in this duration, where we have over 1 billion phones in India, in your opinion, are we seeing only the tip of the connected world?
Yes, I mean, smartphone definitely has proliferated, and as you know, world's populations, quite a lot are having, and many of them would be having soon. So smartphone is kind of getting there. But what is happening in the IoT world, the connected devices world, is all about even the other things. You have the TV and the fridge at home. Can I bring intelligence to them, and can I connect them? Can I have a smart kitchen? Can I have a smart living room, right? Can I have a car connectivity to home? If I've forgotten something from the car with the smartphone, can I control my geyser at home, right? This is the kind of world. And definitely you asked the question, is it tip of the iceberg? Definitely, because not just the number of devices that are getting connected, what you can do with those devices and how the decision making can happen, right? This is just unfolding. Small sensors in each of the kind of verticals. You think it of in terms of agriculture. There are sensors that are possible for doing water measurements and moisture measurements, right?
True, true.
You talk about logistics. There are robotics that are coming to do a smart logistics, smart manufacturing, smart city in the waste management. Think about any verticals, and I think we have a fantastic space. And to be very frank, as we move forward from 5G, beyond 5G, going to 6G, we will see this big world communication where satellite or the whole world is connected, but also the regions are connected by the IoT.
Which is the
There's
Internet of Things.
Yes, Internet of Things. The, what we call PAN, Personal Area Network, small areas that are having lots of sensors. If you look into these new technology, you will see that one of the new parameter is how many devices, connections per square kilometer that you can have. In 2G, 3G, we didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
It was all about voice,
Yes.
right? And then came data, but it was not so much about machine. But now we are starting to treat the machines almost equally as people.
You're excited about the future of this
Sure.
connected world?
Sure. Obviously, we are excited, but to make it happen, we have to be two things keeping in mind, big things. One, definitely, how do you interoperate? One system must talk to the others, right? So this is very important. Otherwise, there will be frustrations of people. Second, when we connect, is it secure? If it is not secure, privacy preserving, people are concerned about that. People are talking about security. So for example, in Samsung, we have this smart things as a platform. So the devices are connected to some edge device, and then they get connected to the cloud. Now, when they do that, we have to make sure at device level, at edge level, as well as at the cloud level, the security is maintained. And not just that, but this cloud could be connected to another cloud. Two people are giving two different services and you want to connect them. So when it goes to the other cloud, would it be also very secure? So these two things, interoperability and security, are very vital. And the third thing is anybody's job is to how to make the platform very scalable platform.
Sure.
Because working with few millions devices versus today in SmartThings we have 200 million devices connected. But when it grows to 1 billion devices and more than that, then I think the whole question is how do you make sure the platform is very scalable.
Thanks a lot for speaking to us, Dr. Alok. May the connected devices world you're speaking of come true.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
The future of the connected world is as bright as we make it. But there is no doubt that there will be an Internet of Things where the human interface would be very large. More and more connected devices, more and more use of electrical, communication, engineering in all kinds of platforms. A digital India is unfolding fast. And in that digital India, citizens will join in if they find it easy for themselves. But definitely, a digital India is there. Keep watching India Science.